Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a place where science and magic come together to transform fact into evolving truth. We're proudly coming to you through the leader of paranormal, parapsychology, New Age, alternative health, and spirituality broadcasting, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, and can also be found on our website, thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring Walk on the Wild Side. I've been blessed with a strong, if petite body, long legs, and a love of walking. I've also been blessed by living close to a country road wherever I've lived for the past 30 years. It was a rare day that I didn't walk for at least an hour at a fast, consistent pace. As a young mother, I wore out countless strollers and baby backpacks. When my children got older, I'd take them for week-long backpacking trips every summer. Wherever I walked, my feet would beat a rhythm, my breath strong and steady, and I'd go into altered space. I become one with the loam under my feet, the clouds overhead, the trees and wildlife, and all of nature's glory. The crisp, fresh air nourished me, the sunshine purified my soul as imagination took flight. While walking, melodies would come. In dreams at night, the words were provided. 2 entire albums were composed in this way. While writing a book or designing a curriculum for my school, when I felt blocked or uninspired, I'd put the computer aside and go for a walk. My feet moved of their own accord, my mind wandering. Soon I entered that creative space, receiving the next portion of whatever project I was working on. This love of walking came from an accident in my early 20s. While in college, I was on the gymnastics team. During competition, I damaged my spine. Pain shot down both legs as I crushed a disc in a backwards handspring. I spent a year in a wheelchair as the doctors tried to correct the problem without surgery. Pain was a constant companion as I watched my young body atrophy from disuse. After the inevitable spinal fusion, I had to rebuild my strength. At first, just walking across the room was a challenge. But determined, I persisted. I was unable to return to gymnastics, but I never took walking for granted again. During and after recuperation, I studied with my first shamanic teacher. He explained the meaning of wildlife and omens we came across in nature. Every walk became not only an altered space inspiration, but a wealth of information as the rich omenology supplied by nature unfolded. Anytime I had a problem or a decision to make, going on a walk and observing what crossed my path supplied the answer. When my children grew up and moved away, annual solo backpacking trips were in effect vision quests. Before going, I'd set the intent as to what I wanted to embrace, and then journaled the experience. To this day, the messages continue to unfold. Last winter, I slipped on the ice, fell, and broke my back, and was virtually bedridden for 3 months. As I lay in bed watching the clouds drift by outside the window, I remembered every walk, hike, or backpacking trip I'd ever taken. I returned there in my imagination and found new messages. Even though I couldn't walk, I continued to write and compose as the inspiration was still available. While healing, it became clear I had to resign from search and rescue. I'll no longer be able to go on solo backpacking trips. But thanks to a brilliant doctor and sheer tenacity, I'm walking and hiking again. Every step I take imbues my soul with the wild, wonderful natural world, a gift that will follow me to my death and beyond. So come on, join me. Take a walk on the wild side. Our guest this hour, PATRICE VECCHIONE, is the author of 2 books, Step into Nature, Nurturing Imagination, and The Spirit of Everyday Life, and writing The Shamanic Life, Finding Your Voice by Looking Within. After this commercial break, I'll introduce PATRICE, and together we'll walk in the creative magic of the natural world. So don't go away. You're listening to The Science of Magic. Prior innovative episodes can be found on our website, thescienceofmagic.net.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
This is Johanna Carroll, host of Dialogue with Divinity on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. While walking along Kaanapali Beach in Maui this past year, I kept discovering all these shells and coral in the shape of hearts. My dialogue with Divinity was very simple. Do you want me to do a retreat to heal people's hearts in Maui next year? And of course, the answer was yes. As a master spiritual teacher, I am offering you a neat retreat called Rise, May 8th through the 12th, 2017, and the chance of a lifetime to rest at a 5-star resort for 5 days and experience a spiritual renewal of your heart and soul. Kaanapali is one of the top 5 beaches in the world. This stunning resort has undergone a $40 million renovation. I walked the entire property, checked out the room choices on your behalf, and I must say it is stunning. Our conference room faces the ocean with sliding glass doors. Maui is known as Mother Maui because it is a soft, gentle, healing energy. In the embrace of Mother Maui, you will feel yourself rising from the limitations of an ordinary life to an extraordinary journey of peace, bliss, and harmony. A greater sense of clarity. Our Rise retreat ignites renewal in the sacred elements of air, water, earth, fire, and wind. There's plenty of free time to enjoy all that Maui has to offer. A small deposit is required now to reserve your space, as this retreat, it will sell out. For more details, please go to johannacarroll.com and register today. Aloha, and I'll see you in mystical Maui.
Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour, PATRICE VECCHIONE, is the author of 2 books, Step into Nature, Nurturing Imagination and Spirit in Everyday Life, and Writing the Spiritual Life, Find Your Voice by Looking Within. Her website is patricevecchione.com. That's PATRICEVECCHIONE.com. Patrice, thank you so much for joining us on the Science of Magic.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
It's just, this should be fun because we have a love of walking, don't we?
Oh, boy, do we. We share that really simple. It's such a simple thing. You know, doesn't require equipment and anything fancy, just 2 strong legs.
Exactly. They keep getting stronger if you keep doing it. You know,
yeah, exactly.
I've always understood, personally, that I run a lot more risk of dying in an automobile accident than by getting eaten by a bear or something in nature. But when I started teaching wilderness survival, I was amazed at how many of my students were terrified of the natural world. What do you think this fear comes from?
I think we've been indoctrinated in this fear as we have moved away from nature being simply a part of our lives. As the cultures have moved into cities and into suburbs, people have become alienated from Mother Earth. And fear is a natural reaction to something you don't understand.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
Right? So if they have never been out in nature, people are more likely to drive a car, like you said, or take a subway and fear nothing than they are to walk in the woods. And I get asked a lot, especially by women, well, how can you do this? How can you walk by yourself? And I look at them and I say, how can I not?
Exactly. This I think is traditionally, my first teacher was Lakota. And he said women are of the earth, that they are our connection to the earth. Their power comes from the earth. I find it very interesting that our Western society has created a terror in women to be out in nature by themselves. It's almost as if it's an attempt to disempower. Do you see that?
Oh, I definitely see it as an attempt to disempower us. No doubt about it. It's an attempt to separate us from the essence of who we are. Another way of controlling women, which, of course, has now just gotten in the United States stronger with the election of Trump. That kind of separation from source.
Yeah, it seems like all of our systems attempt to do that, though, don't they?
I think they do. I
Yeah.
think they do, except, goddess worship and shamanic worship and the Native American teachings and other Native teachings recognize the natural alignment between women and the natural world. And, nothing bad has ever happened to me out there except an awful case of poison oak. Nothing bad. I encountered, about a month ago, I encountered a mountain lion, and she walked right in front of me, and she went on her way, and I ran into the bushes after her because I wanted to get a better look. And she didn't come out to get me. She didn't want to eat me. She knows humans aren't really the best thing for her.
We taste bad.
Yeah, especially the shoelaces. My goodness.
Have to hack up a shoelace ball, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you see the current environmental crisis relating to our disassociation and disconnection from the earth and our fear of the earth, for that matter?
I think it's perpetuating. It's one of those figure eights that one is perpetuating another, and you can allow things to happen to the earth if you have no connection to the earth. I think it's actually horribly simple, that if you don't know something, you don't love something. You have to know it to love it. You have to experience it to love it. So if we're disenfranchised from the earth, then we don't see any reason to protect her.
And then you add to that the fear of it. When people fear things, they try to destroy them, don't they? Or control them at very least.
Exactly. And control is a form of destruction, Yeah, absolutely.
There's a great deal of sensationalism in mainstream media about the dangers of wildlife and the natural world. Sharks are going to eat you if you see one, this kind of stuff. And yet, I've been in waters with sharks, and they, for the most part, have no interest in me except looking at the bubbles, right? So, from the scuba. So if this is the only input for a large number of us that live in the cities, what effect is it having on our ability to connect with and understand nature?
It's depriving us of it, and it's making us think that the natural world is not a part of me. It is not what I come from, and it is harmful and dangerous. So I'm going to stay away, and I'm going to remain in man-made environments. But I think that what I've seen happen with my students is, if we walk in nature, we get reacquainted with something so primal, so primary, our essence, that for many people it becomes seductive, it becomes overpowering, it becomes greater than that which can hold us back.
The attraction is greater.
In cities, right, the attraction's greater, exactly. And even in cities, people I was just in New York City, which is the place of my birth. I was there a few weeks ago. And I walked to Central Park, or I walked to Fort Tryon Park, or I walked, along the Hudson or the East River. Even in cities, there are places where we can go. And it's so obvious if you pay attention, and it's so quick. The heart rate settles, the chatter in the mind dissipates, the breathing becomes less frenetic, and in upper chest breathing becomes deeper, and all of a sudden equilibrium is restored. Like, oh wow, that was so easy.
Yeah, it's amazing. There have been some studies done on it too, hasn't there?
There sure have been, and on depression. a number of studies have been done. I read about them first in Richard Louve's book, which is quite fantastic, The Nature Principle, and Last Child in the Wilderness, 2 books. And if you spend 5 minutes in the natural world a day, it can be a partial cure or at least alleviation for depression. 5 minutes.
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing.
We've also done studies on the effectiveness of essential oils, which come, are distilled directly from natural plants. But if we think about it, and my teacher also imbued this with me, he says that the herbs are great, and we use them when we need to really correct imbalance. But if you simply walk through nature, nature puts out a perfume from the area that you're in, and this actually through the blood-brain barrier that's crossed through your sense of smell actually recalibrates your entire system. Have you experienced that as well?
Oh, absolutely. I walk in a place where there are Monterey pines, and the scent itself restores my sense of balance. There's no doubt about it. And if you reach down and you pick up the loam and bring it to your nose, just the smell of the dirt. And I live a couple miles from the ocean, and walking by the beach, it's the salt spray, that incredible scent. It's truly transformative. In my book, Step into Nature, I have a chapter about our senses, and I call it Knowing Ourselves and Knowing the World and Ourselves, our 5+ senses. All of those senses will reacquaint us with the essence of who we are and how it links to the natural world.
So it really can. Go ahead.
Really connects. When babies are in utero, they actually begin to know their mother's smell from being in utero.
Wow.
It's smell is one of the first senses that we develop, smell and the sense of sound. And so we begin to know the world in this most basic way. And if we go into nature, we retune we have way more than 5 senses, but we retune our 5+ senses.
That's amazing, isn't it? It's just so powerful, and yet most of us have been isolated from it all of our lives.
Yep. Yeah. As we moved away from farming and agrarian life and into the cities, we just got farther and farther away from the essence of who we are. And I think a lot of things that are happening right now that are negative wouldn't be happening if we knew better the necessity. If we don't have an earth, we have nowhere to live. It's kind of basic. And if we don't have trees, we don't have air. We're not able to breathe. I live in Monterey County in California, and one of the good things in this election is that this county banned fracking.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's something, a vote for the earth.
Exactly. Yeah, we have a lot of that going on in Colorado, and I was very delighted to move into a very remote area where it's not going on, because just the energy of it, and we know Oklahoma's having a lot of fun since the fracking started. And of course, all those new earthquakes in Oklahoma have nothing to do with fracking. We know that, right?
Yeah, right. In fact, you know what? I heard something recently, and I don't want to be, I'm not swearing to this because I just heard it rather quickly, that actually it may be that the reason California has had so many earthquakes is because of early drilling that went on quite a long time ago.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not nice to fool Mother Nature. She will make her correction.
Right. And she ultimately won't be fooled. Ultimately, we're going to be the ones who are fooled. And there's a lot of negativity around this, and there is a lot of, for me, fear of the destruction of nature. However, I believe that if we locate ourselves in fear, we become unable to act. Fear is paralyzing, and so right now I'm in a lot of fear because of the election, but I'm doing my best to acknowledge it and love the fear, and then start to move toward my natural way of being, of optimism, because when we feel optimistic and we feel possible, we become life affecting. And I think the imagination is a great, great tool in fostering our ability to be optimistic and life-affecting. Nature's always optimistic. She's, always buds are coming up, grass is coming up, things die, things are reborn. She doesn't give up. If there's a wall in the way, a stream will go around or under or over. So I think we have to learn that of tenacity and optimistic perpetuation in the face of difficulty.
I love that. Optimistic perpetuation in the face of difficulty. That pretty much sums up nature, and we're the smaller part of that equation. Patrice, we're going to have to take a break. On the other side, I'd like to talk about imagination and nature. Patrice and I will return to our discussion after this short break. We're coming to you through the land of leading-edge paranormal broadcasting, the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Don't miss the other fine shows on xzbn.net. You're listening to The Science of Magic, thescienceofmagic.net. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. We will be back, so don't you go away.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O. Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour, PATRICE VECCHIONE, is the author of Step into Nature, Nurturing Imagination and Spirit in Everyday Life, and Writing the Spiritual Life, Finding Your Voice by Looking Within. PATRICE, before we went on the break, we were talking about imagination and what role nature, or walks in nature, play in engaging the imagination.
It's, to me, the most maybe one of the top 5 remarkable things of my life. I walked in nature because I was a long-distance bicyclist, and I had a neck injury. I couldn't ride my bike anymore. So, all right, I'm not going to go to a gym to exercise. I'll just have to go for a walk, darn it. And, I was not happy. I liked the speed and the effort of riding up a big hill on my bike, and I couldn't do that anymore. So I started to walk, and lo and behold, I was completely transformed. I was a writer long before, and I'd written books long before I began to walk in nature. But what happened to me is that the natural world began to speak to me, much as you talked about in the initial introduction to this program. Nature began to talk to me. The birds, the squirrels, the wind. Sometimes wind is a very old man. Other times it's a little boy or a little girl. And I started to take notes, and all I had with me was a pen. And so I began to write on my hand. And then the next walk, I noticed I was writing all the way up to my elbow, and I thought, I think I need a notebook. So I got a notebook, and I just started. I felt like I was taking dictation from the natural world. And my imagination grew exponentially. It grew in ways I could never have foreseen. And that's how I wrote Step into Nature. My literary agent sold the book based on a proposal that I had crafted while walking in the woods. And then I would go out every day and walk in the woods as I was writing the book. And basically, the woods told me what to write. Not 100%. I do take some responsibility for what I wrote. But it felt like a relationship. It felt like I would get ideas from being out in nature that would have never come to me if I had been sitting in my home.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's like, do you think it's because the balance found in nature is returning us to balance, and then that gives us access to universal knowledge?
Yes, I think that's exactly what it is.
So is that
and
go ahead.
Endorphins too, we get that natural high, which is in effect exactly what you're saying, a return to balance. It's our natural birthright to have that endorphin in active in our bodies, and so one thing fosters the other thing.
The imagination is actually the channel through which shamanic information comes. So what shamanic information comes in metaphor form, but in the imagination. And if we don't have access to our imagination, we have absolutely blocked anything but our mental faculty, and it's limited. So go ahead.
Well, it's extremely, I'm just reinforcing, it's extremely limited. And if we don't have access to imagination, as a species, I believe we will be doomed. In the United States, for how many years, there was this program in the schools, which we all know, called No Child Left Behind. And I've taught poetry to children for many, many years. I used to go into the schools and I'd say, we're going to write a poem about what's at the bottom of our heart. And there'd be 30 children in the classroom and there'd be 30 different poems. Well, once No Child Left Behind really became entrenched, and along with it the ideas that knowledge can be tested. We will test your knowledge. You will be graded on what you know or don't know. And there's only one right answer. Once that took hold, that mentality took hold, children were not writing poems anymore. They were looking at me for the right answer. And I would have to say, there is no right answer. You must find your own right answer. Your own poem is in your heart. You write it. And I finally had to give up almost all of my work in the schools because I began to get ill from it. And I began to get extreme migraine headaches because I could not breach this divide that had separated the children from their imaginations.
And if we can't access our imagination, we can't access our heart.
Exactly.
Isn't that sad? So no child's left behind by crippling them all, right?
Exactly. Left every child behind, except those who could afford to go to private school, and then that creates its own problem because then we become the only people who are coming up with inventions and new ideas become the white upper class. Yeah.
And there we have it, the separation. And it's amazing. Without the imagination, we lose our creativity. Without creativity, we can't come up with new solutions to the problems that we've created on the planet. Is this what you're seeing?
Absolutely. And not just the problems on the planet, but any problem. If you're late to an appointment and you need to come up with a creative excuse why you're late, well, your imagination will solve you. If you only have 3 ingredients in your refrigerator to make dinner, it's the imagination that will help you figure out what to cook for dinner. If you want to make somebody fall in love with you, it will be your imagination that will give you ideas to send cookies by mail or whatever it is. So, and invention, science, medical, we need imagination for everything, even things we don't even think about. We need the imagination. It's basic. It's so basic. And if we don't love, if we don't have imagination, and like you're saying, then we don't have the capacity to love, well, then who are we?
Yeah, why be here?
Why be here?
One of the things I always teach is if you cannot imagine a thing, you can't create it. So there goes our ability to manifest right out the window. And isn't that interesting? Doesn't that serve the system, teaching us or telling us what to imagine or not to imagine, and then creating for the system versus what comes through us as individuals?
Yeah, it's like George Orwell is coming to fruition. But I don't believe I will not sink entirely to despair, because I also believe that the imagination has been with us as a species for such a long time. It can be diminished, and we're going through a rough patch right now, but we will, through our imaginations and through love, we will transform the limitations.
I'm absolutely with you. I align and support with that thought.
All right, good.
So how can we become to know ourselves through connection with the natural world?
I think solitude is probably the most important way. And for those people who are uncomfortable being alone in nature, you can go out with your best friend or your husband or your wife, but walk a few steps apart and don't interact, or even walk together, but don't interact with each other. Have your own relationship with the environment, and that will do an enormous amount to restore equilibrium and imagination. And you will be surprised. I think you have to be really attentive and really, I think there's a link between intuition and inspiration. When I walk in nature, my intuition becomes more finely developed. And so I notice more things. And the more I notice, the more I become inspired. And that is the kind of the fuel of imagination is that creative thought that springs forward, and that comes for me through solitude in nature.
I used to take my shamanic students out it was a 2-year program, and is a 2-year program. And in the summer, there was Vision Quest, and there was the nature program. And the nature program, I'd take them out camping for a solid week. And we'd go for walks together because a lot of them were afraid. But again, we would walk in silence, and I'd say, set a question. Here's the question we're going to work with today. Then just observe what goes on around you. And then that evening around the campfire, we'd talk, and it was amazing, the knowledge that came through more than one person doing that, and the synchronicity between the two. Have you experienced that?
Well, that's the other amazing thing, isn't it? The sense of synchronicity. That if one does not have faith in imagination and intuition, if you walk in nature and then you later come together, it's uncanny, the synchronicity that happens.
Yeah, and you can see totally different omens and come with the same synchronistic thought train, if you will.
Yeah. And it proves to me over and over again, the God or Great Spirit or what anybody wants to call it, a sense of being connected to the larger essence. My father died almost 2 years ago, and I greatly miss him. And just 2 weeks ago, I did a performance about women. It's called Words Dressed and Undressed. It's a one-woman show. And right before opening night, and I had 4 shows, and they had all sold out, and right before opening night, about an hour before, my watch stopped. Now, I was not happy. It was a watch my father had found and given me, and I was reliant on that watch for the show. It didn't start. Okay, well, I took it off. And 20 minutes before the next show, the watch started again.
Whoa.
Now, if that wasn't my dad saying, I'm going to hold time steady and still for you, and now, okay, let's go ahead. I mean, it was just an incredible, and I don't think that if I hadn't been spending so much time in nature over the past 10 years, I don't know that I would have really even come to that realization. I would have just thought, I need a new battery for my watch.
Right.
Right?
The concrete solution.
Right.
So as we get more attuned to nature, don't we start to notice the dissonance around us more and get a sensing of where we need to be and when we need to be there in proximity to it?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's about the awakening of the intuition. It's like we become alert to things that we weren't alert to before. And that's an amazing tool that we all right now can really benefit from honing.
It's so important because things are changing so rapidly. We can't rely on the way it's been before. We need our intuition to navigate now, don't you think?
Oh, I think it's absolutely imperative. We need metaphoric thinking. We need imagination. We need intuition. Those are going to be our greatest guides in moving through this time.
Well, we can rejoice the times are what they are because the old is falling apart, and we're being given these tools by people like you to find our way into the new. We're going to have to take another break here. Patrice and I will be back shortly. You're listening to The Science of Magic, thescienceofmagic.net, the place where altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric create common ground for the betterment of our world. We're brought to you by the leader in paranormal, spirituality, alternative health programming, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. Don't miss the other fine programs and hosts on the X-Zone.
As host of Dialogue with Divinity, I am thrilled to join the X-Zone Broadcast Network and their growing number of affiliates. My quest for a connection to the divine ignited my successful career path as an international spiritual counselor for over 40 years, an author of 4 books, and well-known metaphysical educator. My clients call me their spiritual mama. So my job is to offer you a radio show to help you grow spiritually with wisdom and get specific tools from guests who are experts in their field. Tune in to Dialogue with Divinity and be part of the conversation with Spirit. My goal, your happy soul. For more information, please visit my website at johannacarroll.com.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randall, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, bring together gifted people of service to the world. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour, PATRICE VECCHIONE, is the author of Step into Nature, Nurturing Imagination and Spirit in Everyday Life, and Writing and the Spiritual Life, Finding Your Voice by Looking Within. PATRICE, it's my understanding that you started out as a city girl. You didn't start out as a person that was connected to and moving easily through nature. What drove you out there?
I live in Monterey, California. I'm from New York City, and I was one of those people who was afraid of nature, especially afraid of being alone in nature. And I like to exercise. I like to get my heart rate up. And so after having a neck injury, being unable to ride my bike long distances, I started to walk in nature. My husband, before he was my husband, he has been a nature boy all his life, and he also helped to get me out the door. And we would go to the Sierra, up to the high country, and I fell in love with the beauty there. I can't be there because the elevation doesn't set well with me, but I sure did appreciate the beauty in those crystalline lakes and the simplicity of it, really.
How has your Earth connection changed you and your view on reality?
I've always been an optimist, but I think my connection to the natural world has made me more resilient, more optimistic. You look at destruction in nature, either from fire or drought or just the seasons, and then you see the return. And so I think being in nature has made me feel like, well, if the trees can do that, and they've been doing it for ever since the earth began, well, why can't I? What's limiting me? And I have learned to feel less limited.
You know, it's interesting. It's like the seasons give such lessons, don't they? It's like if we can allow the seasons of our life to recycle and let go of things when it's time to let go and regrow new things when it's time to grow them, that simple act will really change the status quo that we're looking at out there.
Yeah, I think about we're coming up, to winter soon, and winter is the time of year where things that are happening below ground. It's the fallow time of year. The poet Theodore Ruskin said that in the roots all flowers hold the light, which is such a beautiful line. But in winter, the roots are they're of course hidden, and there are no blossoms. So for me as a creative being, when I need to have periods that are fallow, that are not productive, that I'm not writing, I'm not making art, it used to be really hard for me to accept that, but not anymore. Now I am just able to say, well, I too am a tree who loses her leaves. I too am a flower who's underneath the ground, a bulb getting ready for spring. And I think that's very important. We're not meant to be productive all of the time. We also need to recharge and reconfigure and fallow to allow ourselves to mulch.
Right, and we just don't honor that in this society. Patrice, before we get too far into this last segment, would you mind sharing with our listeners where they can find your books and your services?
Of course. My book, Step into Nature, is published by Simon Schuster. It's easily available anywhere books are sold. Information about my workshops and my teaching and my other books is available at my website, patricevecchione.com. That's PATRICEVECCIONE.com. And I'm also on Facebook as Patrice Vecchione, and then I have an author page, Patrice Vecchione Author. I would love to be in touch with people on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter and Instagram.
Great. Well, thank you so much for what you're bringing. We need to reconnect with all that is. The earth is screaming out for us to get the messages needed to walk into the next step, don't you think?
I think it's the only thing we can do.
What does a connection with nature have to do with spirituality?
Oh, that is such a good question. When I was working on this book, it had the subtitle a little different than it finally was. It just said Nurturing Imagination in Everyday Life. And I turned in my manuscript to my editor, and after all of the work that she did on it, it came back with a new subtitle, which is Nurturing Imagination and Spirit in Everyday Life. And I was a little bit miffed. That's not what I was writing, and that this book is just about the imagination. And she said, "Have you read your book lately?" She was great. She was a fantastic editor for this book. And I said, well, what are you saying? She said, it has spirituality all over it. And see, for me, link imagination and spirituality so so much that I really wasn't cognizant of the distinct part of the book that is spiritual. But, for me, when I despair in my in belief in a greater essence of life, whatever one wants to call it, God or Great Spirit, I go to nature and my belief is reaffirmed. It's reaffirmed by the sky. These are not man-made things. The sky, the earth, the stars, the moon, the supermoon we've just had, the trees. These are made by something far greater than the human, and they're not made by coincidence either. I'll never believe that coincidence could make a blue sky. And there's something greater at work than any of us understand. And it is bound both in science and in magic and in spirituality and imagination. All of those are integrated and essential to together.
Beautifully stated. What advice do you have for our listeners wishing to connect with nature, but being afraid or not knowing how?
Another great question, Gwilda. So go to somewhere that you can put your bare feet on the ground or put your hands on the earth. And it could be even in your little backyard if you have one, or if you live in a city, in that little bit of dirt that is cut out from the concrete in which a small tree grows. And touch that. You probably don't want to do it with a crowd walking around you, or they'll think that you're a Lulu. But I'll know you're sane. Put your hand or your feet in that dirt and feel it. Make that connection. And then, another time, go to a park or go to a nature center or go to the woods or the beach. And even if you're with someone else, be in silence. Have some solitude. And just notice what you notice. That's the thing. It's so simple. Notice what you notice. Accept what your experience is. And if you want to grow your imagination, get a piece of paper and jot down some words, or get out your colored pencils and put down some colors. And notice that the more you do it, the more comes to you. The more ideas you have, the more images, the greater the metaphor will grow.
That's so powerful. We forget that our bodies are made of nature.
I know. How can we forget this thing? It's so basic. We do.
So
we are nature.
We are. We have about 2 minutes left. What is the most profound thing that has come to you from your Earth connection?
Oh boy, I think I really have to say two things, which is my creative life, the expansion of my creative life has really been a profound experience. My deepening of love, my love has just grown. And lastly, since the death of my father, I go to nature to maintain a relationship with him, and it is so.
So that connection with your father comes through the connection with nature, which hooks you into the spirit that moves through all things?
Exactly. You got it.
That sounds to me like that's pretty valuable.
It's about as valuable as anything can possibly be. And if anyone is like me and despairing at this time after the United States election, go to nature, bring your despair to nature, and your despair will gradually begin to be lifted so that you can move into action.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because nature is the great transmuter. And if we lock our feelings inside of ourselves, it makes us ill. But if we go to nature, she gladly takes them on and transmutes them and rebalances our lives. Is that your experience?
Yes, often. Very, very often. It's taken a few more walks than usual after the election, but I keep walking. It's going to take a few more walks, I think.
Well, Patrice, may you keep walking for years and years to come and bringing your beautiful gift into the world. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Gwilda.
Our guest this hour has been Patrice Vecchione, author of Step into Nature, Nurturing Imagination and Spirit in Everyday Life, and Writing and the Spiritual Life, Finding Your Voice by Looking Within. Her website, PATRICEVECCHIONE.com. This has been The Science of Magic. Remember, you can always listen to past thought-provoking episodes on our website, thescienceofmagic.net. Don't forget to join us on our next episode. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge and comforted with love as you take a walk on the wild side.